What's going on, everyone? Dave Ashworth here. I hope you had an awesome 4th of July. And this week I want to talk to you about keeping your books on the cash basis versus the accrual basis and why you might choose each method. So first, let's define what each is and how you do that. So cash basis financial statements, very simple. As money comes in, cash comes in, it's recorded as revenue. As cash goes out, money goes out, that's recorded as an expense. Very easy. The alternate is the accrual-based method. And there are two principles that guide this method. And that is revenue is recorded when it's earned, and expenses are recorded when they are incurred. Now let me give you an example to kind of drive this home. Let's say that you do a job in January, but you don't collect the money until March. Under the accrual method, you would record that revenue in January when the revenue was actually earned, and then under the cash method, you would record it in March when the money came in. Expenses are the same way. So under the accrual method, whenever those expenses are used up, that's when you would record them. So let me give you an example. Let's say in January, you prepay your insurance expense for the entire year. Under the cash method, you would record all of that in January because that's when the cash actually went out. Under the accrual method, since you're using a piece of it every single month, you would record 1/12 of that expense every single month evenly throughout the year. A few things I want to note before moving forward. One is that if you keep your books on the cash or the accrual basis internally, you can choose a different method for your tax return. A very common way to do it is to keep your books internally on the accrual basis and then file your tax return on the cash basis. One other thing to note is if you keep your books on the cash basis, it's not very easily convertible to the accrual basis. However, if you keep your books on the accrual basis, it's fairly simple to then get a cash basis financial statement so that you can see what's going on both. So if you keep your books on the accrual basis, it's very easy to go to the cash basis, but it doesn't work the other way. In general, for most businesses, I would recommend that they keep their books on the accrual basis, and I want to go through a couple reasons why. First reason, it gives you month to month a more accurate picture of what's happening in the business. See the example that I explained before. So if you're doing any month-to-month comparison, you're going to want to keep your books on the accrual basis. Second, matching your revenue to expenses also gives you a more accurate picture of what the financial health of your company is. And the way to do this is do it on the accrual basis. Let's say you do a job in a certain month, and so you're under the cash method, you may not collect that money for a long time, but those expenses that related to that job have been paid out. So you're going to get those expenses in that month, but then the revenue won't be earned until a future month. Under the accrual basis, since the job is done in a particular month, that revenue is recorded, and since those expenses have been incurred in the same month, you can actually record those in the same month and match those. It's known as the matching principle, and that gives you a more clear and more accurate reflection of your financials. The final thing is historical trends. So if I'm looking back to last year, let's say that I look back on the cash method and I see I have a pretty high revenue number in March. Well, I'm not sure if I actually earned more revenue in March or if I simply collected more cash in March. Under the accrual method, when I'm looking back, I know that when that revenue was actually earned, it's recorded in the proper period. So that gives me a more accurate analysis when I'm looking at historical trends. So as I mentioned before, I would recommend most businesses keep their books on the accrual basis. Some smaller businesses, since the cash method is easier, it makes sense for them to keep it on the cash basis financials, just because there's not a lot of analysis happening, and they just want to get their books done as quickly as possible. So that does make sense. But for most businesses, I would recommend the accrual method of accounting for the reasons that I mentioned before. I hope this video was helpful, and I look forward to talking to you next week.